Hey guys, what's going on? We got another Mythic Plus video here as Enhancement Shaman. This time we are doing a plus 24 Darkheart Thicket. The affixes are Fortified, Storming, and Bursting. And I am also playing the Storm build. So it actually went very well. I was surprised how well I kept up with everybody, considering that Storm is considered not that great. But I've just been finding it in some ways more fun. I guess just taking a break from the Elementalist build is always nice, and just having that option to switch between them is great. But also, I get a lot of questions of, is Storm actually viable? Is Elementalist just that much better? Is there any point in playing Storm? And I mean, to me, it's all personal preference. Whatever you enjoy more, you should play. Like there shouldn't be a reason to play one over the other. If you're looking for pure damage, then yeah, play Elementalist. But if you're not enjoying it, play Storm. See if you enjoy that. It's they're really the difference isn't so much that I would say you have to pick one over the other. I would say they're both very viable. They're both competitive in their own way, and whichever one's more fun for you, I would definitely play. Anyways, onto a more important topic. We got the Break the Meta challenge coming up in a couple weeks, I believe, sometime early April. And I took a look at the roster, and both Enhancement and Elemental Shaman are on there. I didn't actually look at the healers, but I'm going to assume Resto Shaman is probably on there too, which is saying that Shaman in general is not meta, no matter how you look at it, which kind of sucks, but at the same time makes this really easy for us to get this meta done, which is kind of nice. But yeah, that's one thing that's exciting me. There were a couple specs that I really wasn't sure that were actually going to make it, but they did, which was Rep Paladin. There's also Unholy DK that didn't make the cut, which very much surprised me. I thought Unholy DK was actually doing pretty good this season. But yeah, so but the tanks that made it as well were I Demon Hunter for sure, and nobody was surprised about that. Prop Paladin again, nobody was probably surprised, but Death Knight did make the cut, which I thought it was a bit on the lower end, but I knew it was still strong. It's just very surprising not seeing Brewmaster up there, honestly. But yeah, so that's one thing that's coming up. Um, Another exciting news is Phase 3 of Season of Discovery just got announced, and I don't know if anybody that watches my Mythic Plus stuff is interested or plays that, but yeah, uh, Phase 3 just got announced for April 4th, which is super duper exciting. I can't wait for that. The other thing is that they're bringing out dual spec, which is kind of interesting, but I'm kind of questioning how much is that going to cost to get and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't wait to see that coming out. But as for retail Mythic Plus, apparently there's a lot of controversy about them taking away the Mythic Plus affixes, and I believe they are talking about affixes like Reaping, or I don't remember what the other one was, but it was basically something to give you extra power granting pat thingies, which in my opinion does make the dungeon more fun. I mean, why wouldn't you want something that makes you even more powerful than you already are in a dungeon, right? So, in my opinion, that is honestly a great uh a great thing to talk about for Mythic Plus in general, especially for the future of Blizzard, where they want to take Mythic Plus. Uh, Hearing that they want to remove affixes in general, such as like bursting and stuff, all of those affixes, and just have it fortified and tyrannical. In my opinion, that would make Mythic Plus very boring in a sense. Like you're just running the dungeon, no special affix to worry about or anything, but something to basically amp up the give a little bit of difficulty, but also add in a massive reward to it, right? Like Thundering wasn't very fun because it relied on a full team cooperation, but things like Reaping were actually fun where you kill I think it was like 40%. Once you're done 20% of the trash or something like that, maybe it was 40. I think it was actually 20. Every 20%, it would respawn all of that trash, but as like a weaker sort of form. and have it all chase you down. And basically you would end up with this giant group of mobs that made it way towards you, and you would have to burn them down very fast, which was super, in my opinion, really, really fun. Um, just because you get this opportunity to do this massive amount of damage to like 50 things at once, and it's like, whoo, you see these classes that don't usually appear, such as Elemental Shaman, which hasn't been meta in a very long time, appear because they have that quick burst of AoE and that massive pool of damage they can do. So, although Elemental has been modified in different ways than it was back in BFA, but still, the same thing applies, right? You see these different classes appear because these big pulls end up happening, even though you might not be able to do it outside of reaping. During the reaping phase, you do get all of these mobs appearing at once, right? So different classes that could come up, different utilities come in. I love things like that. Another one which they mentioned was encrypted, which I'm going to be honest, I don't really remember it at all. One that I kind of liked was the obelisk one, from the final phase of BFA, I believe. Basically, you would enter this portal, and the only thing in there was the portal guardian. And if you dragged him to anywhere in the dungeon, you would gain a portal access, almost like a stealth skip to that zone. So you could go from boss to boss if you wanted to, or just skip these terrible mob encounters that you want to skip without having to force a rogue onto your team or anything like that, right? So those are the type of things I'd like to see, like utility or buff types. That'd be great. With a small setback as if you mess it up, right? Whereas thundering, you gain this extra little bit of damage, but to be honest, it wasn't worth the risk in a sense, right? So if you did it correctly, yes, you got it correct, but the reward wasn't there for the amount of punishment you got for messing it up. Because if you mess it up, you're stunned for like 3 seconds and take a whole lot of damage. It's really, really imbalanced in my opinion. Um, and if you kept the buff, right, you kept the damage buff, but the longer you kept it, the more risk you're running at stunning the whole team and messing everything up. So those are things I think they should avoid, but I think they should still bring back some form of bonus power going to your entire group. I think that's an amazing idea to bring forth. It makes Mythic Plus more fun. They could even amp up the mobs, giving them HP increases or stuff like that. Or at the start of the dungeon, you have like this random affix generator or something where you gain an affix and so do the mobs, right? So I think that could be something interesting, such as like every auto attack you do, or every time you deal damage, you gain a stacking increase of damage. You know, like you gain 1% stacking up to 20 times, but at the same time, the trash mobs that are whacking you are going to gain that same buff, right? So the longer they last, the worse it gets for you guys and bosses as well, in a sense. But I feel like bosses would be totally different. But yeah, those are things I think they should look at. I mean, currently we have very weird affixes like storming. It's not necessarily a painful one. It's definitely one of the more annoying ones to deal with. Being knocked up, especially when a dew circle is needed to be soaked, or even like you have a swirl that you need to get out of, but you just got knocked up by storming because it's annoying. Same with volcanic. You can't just sit there and cast. You actually have to move once in a while. It's definitely a pain in the butt. Bursting is also one of the weak killers, essentially. Although the higher players find it an irrelevant, not necessarily irrelevant, but a very easy mechanic to deal with. In the lower key levels, it's very difficult to deal with because things are dying extremely fast and you don't have any group coordination, right? You want to believe everybody is thinking, oh, we just got 4 stacks, all DPS stop. And then you let your healer catch up or dispel, or maybe a priest dispel and let the dot fall off, right? But unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen in the lower keys. You know, you get dots ticking and stuff like that, and then you roll from 4 to 5, and then 5 to 6, and so on and so forth. And then you got mechanics like entangling, where they can just be removed with either freedom or just simply move out, right? Now, sometimes they are in bad positions when you have to soak and stay in a spot, and then a tangling appears, and it's like, oh crap, now I just gotta sit here and eat this stun. But, and then there's other ones like bolstering, where you have like this weird mob differentiating. Like, Waycrest Manor, for instance, the little thorn dogs that run around, those bolster everything around them, and there's like 50 of them, and it's like, well, these aren't even elites. Why are they bolstering, right? They're not even doing like a half stack or anything. They also burst, and it's like, okay, that kind of makes it unfun because you got all these casters or unstoppable effects that you can't do anything about, and it just kind of ruins everything in a sense. So I think if Blizzard looks towards more fun and ways to punish, but also buff the team that's running the dungeon, I think that would be more interesting. We need more um, uh, reward for these affixes, and I think all the affixes should come with some form of reward, right? So the first affix, if you do it correctly, or you don't get hit, or maybe like I don't know, like something falls from the sky and you soak the swirl, and you gain a haste buff. But if you don't, well, you just lost a haste buff, and that's it. Or maybe it does a minor damage to everybody, you know, like it does like 5% of your health is damage if it falls, but it doesn't fall very often, you know. And then they got things that they're reworking, such as explosive, which I heard was very interesting, but they canceled it out because it wasn't working as intended. Basically, they had it so one big orb was supposed to spawn, and basically all forms of damage would be dealt to it, such as AoE effects and stuff like that. You didn't have to primarily target it. But the PTR testers said, okay, this is kind of a worthless affix, considering it's not even worth targeting because it does less damage when it has lower health, right? So you just cleave it down, it explode, and your healer just has an easier time healing it than you would dealing damage to it, right? So that type of thing is kind of weird. It does kind of it's not really ideal for Blizzard, I think. I think they want something where if you don't do it, you die type of thing, but at the same time, that's not really a fun affix to deal with, in my opinion. I hear a lot of people saying no fit affixes at all would make Mythic Plus more fun. In my opinion, it wouldn't though. It would make it super, super boring, and it would make it like very unrepetitive, right? So you're doing the same thing over and over and over again without even changing any form of affix or difference in the dungeon, right? You're just doing the dungeon at a slightly higher difficulty than before, and that to me is kind of weird. Um, I'm usually really into Mythic Plus the first few weeks, and that is because one, I really like gearing, especially for a new season. It's definitely the favorite part of the beginning of the season, and honestly, my favorite part of the game is just getting the gear, getting the best quality gear as I possibly can, and doing the dungeons and stuff like that, right? So I enjoy gearing up. Once I'm fully geared, it's kind of boring because I feel like there's no reward afterwards other than just bragging rights. Like, I don't know, like the top guys, obviously they enjoy pushing keys and getting those bragging rights, right? To me, there's no real reward. I mean, I don't really want to push 30s or 31s. It doesn't seem all that enjoyable to me, but at the same time, like there's no real reward for pushing after 20 other than bragging rights, right? So like maybe they could implement something there, but I don't know. The beginning of the season is always the most fun for me, and I think for everybody else, right? Brand new content, new gear to get, stuff like that. And then as the season goes on, things kind of level out, and you're like, okay, well, we're just kind of doing the same thing. Now it's time to raid log and just wait for the new season to begin. So if you're, I don't know, it's just I think it's very tough on Blizzard's part right now, is just trying to figure out what to do with Mythic Plus. What does the community want? You know, what do the top players want? What do the lowest players want? How can we make this more interesting? And one thing they've done is coming in season 4 is that they are reducing the essentially difficulty between a 0 and a +2, I guess, or reward differences between a 0 and a +10, and they're trying to close that gap, which I think is a great idea. And I can't wait to see how it plays out in season 4. Uh, but obviously, you know, people are going to have issues with it, as they always do. You can never please everybody, right? You can only try and please the majority. Not everybody's going to be super excited. So it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is sometimes. Like, especially for classes, right? I personally would have liked to see season 1 Enhancement Shaman tier set come back, because I do love playing both specs, and I believe that one would benefit both specs equally and most beneficial for entirety of Enhancement Shaman. But we are getting our season 3 back, which means we will be seeing more of Elementalist coming back. So it's one of those things where you can't please everybody, and they tried doing a poll, but I think that what they should have done is allowed you to choose which tier set you want. And I get it. You would always have that one tier set. Oh, I have to get all three just to see which one's better or something like that. So it's a weird thing, but yeah. I don't know. I'm excited for season 4. I can't wait to see. I'm also excited. Can't wait to see the hero talents for War Within. We had the Farseer ones recently released, and I thought those were very, very cool and very interesting at the same time. But yeah, so it's been a crazy week for World of Warcraft. Season 3, or for Season of Discovery, is coming out. We have Breaking the Meta coming up soon. And if you didn't watch the MDI, they had some crazy stuff going on where they were doing these +23 keys. I believe it was an Atal Dazar, and they did it in 4 pulls, I want to say. And I believe they finished it in under 10 minutes. And to me, that is crazy. Um, but yeah, so it's interesting to see these top players pull out this type of stunt. And it just makes me wonder what Blizzard's thinking when they see this type of stuff. Like, oh, do we need to nerf this? Do we need to buff these other classes? Like, what's the threshold? So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoy me rambling on and watching the behind the scenes of me doing enhancement things. Hopefully it's not too boring, but yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!